In this lesson, we will examine how the brilliant military leader Napoleon Bonaparte seized power in France and built an empire that spanned Western Europe. The first key idea we will cover is how Napoleon overthrew the corrupt Directory government and made himself leader of France. We will then see how Napoleon instituted major economic, political, and religious reforms that preserved some gains of the revolution while also preserving his own power as ruler. Next, we will examine how Napoleon's efforts to build an empire in the Americas failed, while in Europe he succeeded in conquering a large amount of territory and expanding the French Empire. Napoleon Bonaparte was born in 1769 on the Mediterranean island of Corsica. When he was 9 years old, his parents sent him to a military school in northern France. In 1785, at the age of 16, he finished school and became a lieutenant in the artillery. When the revolution broke out, Napoleon joined the army of the new government. Napoleon favored the Jacobins and Republican rule, though he found the conflicting ideas and personalities of the French Revolution confusing. In October 1795, fate handed the ambitious young Napoleon a chance for glory. When rebels who wanted to restore the monarchy marched on the National Convention, a government official told Napoleon to defend the delegates. Napoleon and his gunners fired on the rebels, causing the attackers to flee in panic and confusion. Napoleon became a hero and was hailed throughout Paris as the savior of the revolution. In 1796, the Directory appointed Napoleon to lead a French army against the forces of Austria and the Kingdom of Sardinia. Crossing the Alps, the bold young general swept into Italy and won a series of remarkable victories. He crushed the forces of Austria and eliminated them as a threat to southern France. In a bold move, Napoleon invaded Egypt in 1798. His goal was to threaten Britain's control of the eastern Mediterranean and its valuable trade with India. The military campaign in Egypt also had an important cultural element as well. Napoleon brought many scholars and historians with him to study the remains of ancient Egyptian civilization. During their study, they uncovered an object called the Rosetta Stone, which made possible the translation of ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics. Napoleon won an important victory against an Egyptian army in the Battle of the Pyramids in July 1798. A month later, however, a British fleet under the command of the brilliant and heroic Horatio Nelson defeated the French navy. The French army was now stranded in Egypt, but Napoleon escaped and returned to France, where he managed to keep the report of his defeat out of the press. By 1799, the Directory had lost control of the political situation in France and the confidence of the people. Only the Director's control of the army kept them in power. Upon Napoleon's return from Egypt, the Abbé Sieyès urged him to seize political power. Napoleon and Josephine, his lovely and socially well-connected wife, set a complex plan in motion. They met with influential leaders and convinced them to support Napoleon as France's military leader. In November 1799, Napoleon's troops secured control of the national legislature, which voted to dissolve the Directory and establish a new government, a three-man ruling body called the Consulate. Another constitution was drawn up, and Napoleon took the title of First Consul. Although there were two other consuls, they had no real power, and Napoleon basically became the military dictator of France. At first, Napoleon pretended to be the constitutionally chosen leader of a free republic. By 1804, however, he had acquired enough power to assume the title Emperor of France. He invited the Pope to preside over his coronation in Paris on December 2, 1804. During the ceremony, however, Napoleon took the crown from the Pope's hands and placed it on his own head. With this arrogant gesture, Napoleon signaled that he was more powerful than the Church, which had traditionally crowned the rulers of France. Napoleon also showed that he owed his throne to no one but himself. At each step on his rise to power, Napoleon held a plebiscite, or popular vote by ballot. Weary of instability and desperate for strong leadership, each time the French people voted overwhelmingly to support Napoleon. In this way, although Napoleon held absolute power, the people believed they still had a say in the government through their votes. At the time of Napoleon's seizure of power, France was still at war. In 1799, British diplomats assembled the second coalition of anti-French powers, Britain, Austria, and Russia. Their goal was to drive Napoleon from power. Once again, Napoleon rode from Paris at the head of his troops. Eventually, as a result of war and diplomacy, all three nations signed peace agreements with France. By 1802, Europe was at peace for the first time in 10 years. Napoleon was now free to focus his energies on restoring order in France. During both the Consulate and the Empire, Napoleon consolidated his power by strengthening the central government. Order, security, and efficiency replaced liberty, equality, and fraternity as the slogans of the new regime. Napoleon did not try to return the nation to the days of Louis XVI. Instead, he kept many of the changes that had come with the Revolution. He supported laws that would both strengthen the central government and achieve some of the goals of the Revolution, such as a stable economy and more equality in taxation. Napoleon first tackled the economy, which was in difficult shape after years of mismanagement, corruption, and revolution. The Revolution had sought to adopt fair taxation and to lower inflation. Napoleon set up an efficient tax collection system and established a national bank to regulate banking activities. The national bank helped stabilize the currency and combat inflation. He also built roads and canals and encouraged new industry through state loans. In addition to assuring the government a steady supply of tax money, these actions promoted sound financial management and better control of the economy. The Revolution also sought to reduce corruption in the government and create opportunities for more people to work in government, regardless of social status. Napoleon dismissed corrupt officials. In order to provide his government and military with talented officials, he set up lycées, or government-run public schools. The students at the lycée included the children of ordinary citizens, as well as children of the wealthy. Once trained, the graduates of these schools could then be appointed to positions as bureaucrats and military officers, based on merit rather than family connections. These reforms resulted in a greater number of honest and competent officials, equal opportunity in government, and a dramatically improved system of public education for all classes. The Revolution had sought to reduce the power and influence of the Catholic Church in France, as well as promote religious toleration. Napoleon understood, however, that many people in France wanted to restore the position of the Church. Therefore, he signed the Concordat of 1801 with Pope Pius VII. This treaty spelled out a new relationship between Church and State. The Concordat recognized Catholicism as the dominant religion in France, but kept the Church under state control. Lands that had been seized from the Church during the Revolution were not restored, but religious freedom and toleration was guaranteed. Revolutionaries who opposed the Church denounced the agreement, but Catholics welcomed it. The Concordat gained Napoleon the support of the Catholic Church, as well as the majority of the French people. Among Napoleon's greatest and most lasting reforms was a new code of laws, popularly called the Napoleonic Code. It embodied certain Enlightenment ideals such as the equality of all citizens before the law, religious toleration, and the abolition of feudalism. It gave the country a uniform set of laws and eliminated many injustices. But the Napoleonic Code undid some reforms of the French Revolution. Women, for example, lost most of their newly gained rights and could not exercise the rights of citizenship. Male heads of households regained complete authority over their wives and children. Freedom of speech and of the press, also established during the Revolution, were restricted rather than expanded. The new laws also restored slavery in the French colonies of the Caribbean, which the revolutionary government had abolished. Again, Napoleon valued order and authority over individual rights. Napoleon won support across class lines. He encouraged émigrés to return, provided they take an oath of loyalty. Peasants were relieved when he recognized their right to lands they had bought from the church and nobles during the Revolution, and also supported his peace with the Catholic Church. The middle class, who had benefited most from the Revolution, approved of Napoleon's economic reforms and the restoration of order after years of chaos. Napoleon also opened jobs to all based on talent, a popular policy among those who bitterly remembered the old days when the aristocracy had a monopoly on positions of influence and power. Napoleon was not content to simply be master of France. He wanted to control the rest of Europe and to reassert French power in the New World. From 1804 to 1812, Napoleon furthered his reputation and his political ambitions on the battlefield. He successfully fought the combined forces of the greatest European powers. He took great risks and even suffered huge losses, but he relentlessly drove forward. As a military leader, Napoleon valued rapid movements and made effective use of his large armies. He developed a new plan for each battle, so opposing generals could never anticipate what he would do next. His enemies paid tribute to his leadership. Napoleon's presence on the battlefield, said one, was worth 400,000 troops. Napoleon envisioned creating an empire in the Western Hemisphere that would include Louisiana, Florida, French Guiana, and the French West Indies. He knew that the key to this plan was regaining control over the rich, sugar-producing colony of Saint Domingue on the island of Hispaniola. In 1801, Napoleon decided to send an expedition to crush a slave uprising in the colony and restore French rule. The difficult conditions on the island and fierce resistance by the rebellious slaves thwarted the French. Even worse, thousands of French soldiers died from tropical diseases such as yellow fever. After suffering terrible losses, Napoleon was forced to abandon his effort to regain control of the island, and Saint Domingue became the independent country of Haiti. After losing Saint Domingue, Napoleon decided to give up on his plans to build an empire in the Americas. When the United States government expressed interest in gaining control of the important port city of New Orleans, Napoleon recognized an opportunity to make some desperately needed money and cut his losses in the Americas. He offered the United States not only New Orleans, but the entire Louisiana Territory as well. After some difficult negotiations, Napoleon sold the Louisiana Territory to the United States in 1803 for $15 million. Napoleon needed the money from the sale to finance his wars in Europe, and he hoped that by strengthening the United States, he would give Britain a dangerous rival that would distract it from the conflict on the continent. Having failed to achieve his goals in the New World, Napoleon shifted his focus back to Europe. He had already annexed the Austrian Netherlands and parts of northern Italy to France, and set up a puppet government in Switzerland. Now he looked to expand his influence further. Fearful of his ambitions, Britain persuaded Russia, Austria, and Sweden to join in the Third Coalition against France. Napoleon met the forces of the Third Coalition with his usual boldness. In a series of battles culminating in the decisive Battle of Austerlitz in 1805, Napoleon crushed the opposition. Eventually, the rulers of Austria, Prussia, and Russia all signed peace treaties with Napoleon, whose proud and patriotic army had enabled him to build the largest European empire since the Romans. The only major enemy left undefeated was Britain, whose power lay in its navy. During the war against the Third Coalition, Napoleon had attempted to defeat his great rival Britain and failed. In 1805, the combined French and Spanish navy was decisively beaten by Britain in the Battle of Trafalgar off the southern coast of Spain. The commander of the British fleet was Horatio Nelson, who had bested Napoleon several years earlier near Egypt. Despite being outnumbered, Nelson outmaneuvered the larger French-Spanish fleet, showing as much brilliance in warfare at sea as Napoleon had in warfare on land. Nelson died during the battle, but his victory was a major turning point in the struggle between France and Britain. It guaranteed that the British Navy would dominate the seas for the next century, and it forced Napoleon to give up any plans for invading Britain. Napoleon would have to look for another way to cripple his powerful enemy. Eventually, Napoleon's extravagant efforts to crush Britain would lead to his own undoing. As Napoleon created his vast French Empire, he redrew the map of Europe. He annexed the Netherlands, Belgium, and parts of Italy and Germany. He also officially abolished the tottering Holy Roman Empire and created a 38-member Confederation of the Rhine under French protection. He cut Prussian territory in half, turning part of Old Poland into the Grand Duchy of Warsaw. Napoleon controlled much of Europe through forceful diplomacy. One tactic he used was placing friends and relatives on the thrones of Europe. For example, after unseating the King of Spain, he placed his own brother, Joseph Bonaparte, on the throne. He also forced alliances on European powers from Madrid to Moscow. At various times, the rulers of Austria, Prussia, and Russia reluctantly signed treaties with the Corsican ogre, as the monarchs he overthrew called him. French armies under Napoleon spread ideas of the revolution across Europe. They backed reforms in the lands they conquered. In some places, they helped install revolutionary governments that abolished titles of nobility, ended church privileges, opened careers to men of talent, and ended serfdom and manorial dues. The Napoleonic Code, too, influenced the legal systems of countries across Europe. In France, Napoleon's successes boosted the spirit of nationalism. Great victory parades filled the streets of Paris with cheering crowds. The people celebrated the glory and grandeur that Napoleon had gained for France. Now that we have completed this lesson, examine the questions on this slide. After I finish speaking, pause the video and see if you can answer them based on what you have heard. Use this as a way to help you review for the assessments.